Okay, it's 7 o'clock. We're all here for the planning board meeting for June 25th, 2020. We're continuing our COVID-19 online planning boards. Today we have a rather modest agenda. As far as I can tell, I may be wrong, but the primary thing that we have on the agenda today is the continued consideration of Nature's Wilderness conditional use permit. I see Jamie McDonald just hopped on, so we may have a discussion with Jamie as well. And then we also need to talk about whether or not we're going to continue virtual meetings or we're going to do an in-person meeting. On that, I'd like to hear from the selectmen how their meeting went, and then kind of whether or not we can use the auditorium. But let's start off with the minutes from the last meeting. The Honorable Secretary sent those out earlier today, I think it was. Might have been yesterday. It's been a long day. I reviewed them. I didn't have any questions. Does anybody have any questions or would like to make a motion?
I move that they be accepted as written.
I second it. Second.
All right, all those in favor, raise your hand. Appears to be unanimous. So those meeting minutes will be posted. I believe we have a question about the October 24th meeting. If I can't remember who was the secretary for that meeting, but whoever was the secretary, can you forward those minutes to Nickel so he can process those? I just don't remember, frankly. Did you look back, Nickel, to see who did it?
I don't have any minutes. I'd have to look at the video, I guess. I didn't have a chance to, because there was a request to Danielle today for those minutes, and she was asking me for them, and I don't have them because I didn't write them. So I don't know what happened.
Okay. Let's take a look at it and see if we can get that cleared up. If you did not attend the meeting, Nickel, then whoever acted as secretary should be providing those. So if you could reach out to that person directly and just work it out, that'd be great.
I can take on looking at the video and who looked like they were writing. That seems easy enough. Just didn't have a chance to today.
Okay. No problem. Any other preliminary matters before we move on to Nature's Wilderness? Okay. So my understanding of the status of Nature's Wilderness is that we had a couple of preliminary matters, but that, and we'll talk about those in a second, but that the material that Lee J distributed was the revised version of the conditions and findings of fact that we diligently went through over 3 or 4 meetings, 2 or 3 meetings, and Lee J made corrections to them. And then our goal today, if you all want, is to confirm that they're consistent with what we want as a board for conditions, and then vote on the matter as a board. I have some suggestions or comments or concerns that I'd like to raise. I just distributed before the meeting a list of proposed additional conditions. I apologize for doing it late in the day. It's been that kind of week, but I wanted to share at least my thoughts. I could have done it verbally. I'll do it verbally as well, but I just wanted people to have something. And then if other people see additional conditions that they think are appropriate, we can discuss those as well. And then hopefully by the end of the meeting, we'll be at a place where we can take a vote. In terms of preliminary items, the two things that kind of were, I think, on my radar that we wanted was the transfers to Judith and Alexander were created an issue of a potential subdivision, and the applicant said that they would undo the Judith transaction. And I received, I think everybody received, a copy of the transfer, the deed transferring the property back to Nature's Wilderness. For at least my purpose, I'm fine with that as being documentation of the return of the asset. Anybody have any questions about that? It was recorded like 6:20 or something like that, 6:24, somewhere around there. Anybody have any questions on that from the board? Great. So my calculations with the return of that parcel of property is that the parcel of property that Nature's Wilderness is seeking a conditional use permit on is you can hear the drum roll, right? 462 acres. So it was originally it was a 469 acre piece of property, and 6.58 acres was sold to Mr. Alexander, which reduces the total acreage to 462.42, but I'm just rounding to 462 for the purpose of this. I'll put that question to the applicant. Does that sound correct? Because that's actually going to be a figure that we're going to use, I hope, in this application.
Yeah, it sounds correct to me.
Okay, great. So the deed issue was resolved to the satisfaction of the board. And then the second issue was a desire to have the liability policy that the Nature's Wilderness had on the property. I think the specific concern was whether or not it expressly covered potential damages to adjoining properties by in case a fireworks display or a fire that was originated on the campground property was impacted other parcels of property. So the liability insurance was submitted. I read it. It was actually quite informative. I think it actually will drive a couple new but not materially different conditions. But did anybody have any questions, comments, or concerns about the liability insurance? Mr. Fricker.
So I scanned it, and I mean, it seemed like a typical liability insurance coverage. It speaks mainly about coverage of the property and the buildings and things like that on the property, but I was not able to determine where the policy stood in terms of fireworks coverage, or coverage for liability for any kind of fireworks damage. But I don't know, David, when you read it, were you able to discern anything like that?
No.
Well, that was
Yeah,
why
Gary.
I originally requested
There's,
that.
there's special riders on the insurance that covers fireworks and ATVs. And I put asterisks next to it so you could see when it was sent to you. There's a section in there that says it covers fireworks, it covers ATV use, it covers all the buildings, the land, adjoining land, everything around. It's all covered. There's a huge insurance policy there. It covers everything. It also gives us a list of what we can't do. So it's everything is in there covered. I asked for the extra rider for the fireworks, and there's asterisks next to it so you can see it.
So
Well-
I do see that it covers any and all campground activities, which would include fireworks, Matt. That's where the asterisk is.
What he's saying is at the bottom, it says that it covers any and all fireworks displays as long as appropriate personnel are present or something like that. It's on I think the last page, and there's a big star.
I think it says it in 2 places, if I remember correctly.
I will say that satisfies me that they're covered for fireworks.
Thank you. Specifically asked for a rider to cover that and ATVs.
Any questions, Matt?
I don't see that in the 19 pages that I have. I'm not sure where it is, but if you guys say it's there, it's there. I have the PDF file of 19 pages. Oh, there, coverage applies to fireworks displays as long as appropriate controls and personnel are present. I had to turn that page around.
It's the
because
bottom
it's
of page
upside
1.
down.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Does that satisfy you, Matt?
I don't know what appropriate controls and personnel are. You know, if something happened and you know, I guess it's up to the insurance company to determine what appropriate controls and personnel are. It's a little
Yeah,
vague,
I think, I mean,
honestly.
at least in my opinion, I think the conditions that we have are probably stricter than what the legal requirements are in terms of what the applicant needs in order to do a fireworks display. We're going above and beyond that with having the fire department present. The need for, I think the only legal requirement, according to Jason, is that they have a burn permit, and so I think we've got some pretty good
Okay.
restrictions on it.
All right.
Is that what
Okay,
they
thank
mean?
you.
I have no idea, but yeah, Jason.
I guess there was some confusion with the last meeting, and I spoke of having the fire department and such on standby. I was under the impression that Nature's Wilderness was going to hire a pyrotechnics company to come in and put on a fireworks display in which you would see on a 4th of July event in local municipalities and such, which obviously that's a far bigger show than something that we can, you know, any of us can just go buy off the shelf. I guess I misinterpreted the perception here, and I guess the fine line we fall under is if we have to put all these guidelines in place as far as policing the campground with their fireworks, then every resident in the town of Baldwin we would have to do that for.
Yeah, I'm gonna call you on video.
What was that?
I have no idea.
That was my phone.
I'm going to mute him. All right, go ahead.
So I guess, so that would be considering, like, say you were to have fireworks at your house, we'd have to bring the barrage of fire trucks and things over for you to do that. So I believe, some safety measures could be put into place, but I don't, unless a pyrotechnics company, which is a far larger show, is involved, I'm not sure that the town really wants to invest in the payroll and such of, putting, firefighters on standby at every fireworks show in the town of Baldwin. A private fireworks show at that.
Right, but this is the only location that has requested as part of their operations to engage in. It is a commercial fireworks show. It may not be commercial in the sense of hiring a pyrotechnics expert, but it is commercial in the sense of they're putting on a display for their guests. And so, I think the board had significant concerns about the safety of doing that, and that having the fire department there, should be a relatively short period, made us feel comfortable that it actually concerns me more to have them do it than to hire a professional. Like, I just don't know if they have the level of expertise to know, if it goes up 300 feet and you have a 10-mile-an-hour wind, that the ambers are going to carry 397 feet, potentially create a fire. I think we felt comfortable with you saying we can provide this resource to this commercial activity 5 times a year. I guess
it can certainly be provided. It will come. It may not come as the fact of, 4 fire trucks and 20 members of the fire department. There may be just one member of the fire
truck.
Department. Yeah. I can certainly make that happen.
Yeah, I think that's a useful use of the town's resources. I think it's a fairly nominal. I mean, Dwight, do you have a concern with that level of expenditure of the town resources?
You're muted, Dwight.
Yeah, I'm trying to unmute him. Yeah, I can't unmute him. He's got to unmute himself. There you go, Dwight. You're unmuted.
Yeah, I don't see a problem with having a truck there and a couple men.
Okay. In terms of, and Jason, I'm not trying to step on your toes. I'm just asking Dwight as a selectman. He's the one that has to approve he's one of the people in charge of approving the expenditure of funds. You are as well. I didn't mean to step on your toes there, but I just want to. I thought we felt comfortable with that process. That if we couldn't have that sort of protection, I'd probably be more hesitant to allow them to do, a display.
And that's certainly fine. I was just making sure that we were at a better understanding with that.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. I do. I think we ended on a good place on that fireworks display, getting the applicant what they wanted and getting some protections to the town. And now we have the insurance. That's, I think we pretty much have all 4 corners of this covered.
Certainly.
Okay. So there's a couple ways we can do this. I had some minor changes going through this. We can go, it's I don't know how many pages it is off the top of my head, but it's 15 or so pages. We could go, I'm not going to read it, but we could basically go page by page. If anybody has any concerns, suggestions, or edits, I'd like to go fairly quickly through it, and then address whether or not there's anything else. So on the first page, I didn't have any changes. Anybody? And the applicant, this goes to you guys too. If there was something you thought was inconsistent with what was discussed, let us know. So on the second page, applicant's name, Lee J, you just got to change it to Florida Corporation. It's not a Maine corporation.
It is changed. You should see a strike through and an underline. Maine is struck through and Florida is underlined.
Okay, well, mine printed off the wrong way then. Give me 2 seconds here. I apologize.
Is your copy got the line numbers on the left-hand side?
No, it just has the date. That's weird.
Okay, the latest copy has that I sent out. I think, does the applicant have that copy? Has numbers on the left-hand side for every line?
Mine has, I have numbers and I see your strike through marks and underline marks as well. You have to,
Yeah, I see this.
it's the track changes. You have to make sure that you have it, not no
Track
markup. You have
changes
to
only.
show the markup.
Right.
And then all of his notes will come up. It's under the review tab if you are looking at Word. Review, then track changes.
Yeah, mine opened as a PDF. That's why I'm confused. All right, well, let's go through. I have the changes, so let's go through and see how far we can get. Oh, it's on the second page, Lee J.
Yes, it's on the top of the second page.
Oh, it's the first page then. It says the Maine corporation.
Which line?
The fourth line down total. Do I have a different?
Well, it says the applicant's name is Nature's Wilderness LLC, a Maine corporation.
Right, it's supposed to be a Florida corporation.
Okay.
I'm not as crazy as I feel right now.
I guess I was confused only because some places we have Maine corporation, other places it says Florida.
Yeah, so the address is the operating address is the Upper Twain Road.
Correct.
But the owner of record is the Boca Raton address.
Okay, that's an easy change.
Okay. And then down on number 9, it says the development is a portion of the property shown as Lot 22, Map 7. BJ, I just wanted to make sure I understood. Is this, when you say the development, are you referring to the development lot, or are you referring to the lot, the entirety of the lot that the campground is on?
The lot that the campground is on.
Okay, so it should say the development is on the entirety of the property, not a portion.
Okay.
And then at the end, it should say, after it says map 7, there should be a comma, and it should say, except for the 6.58 acres sold to Alexander on or about November 19th, 2019. I mean, it's a minor change, but it becomes important later, so.
Okay, that's fine.
All right, so going to the second page, everything looked good here for me. Anybody?
So any changes you see along the way are the ones we discussed at the previous meeting.
Yep. Third page, I did not have any changes. Anybody else? We're cruising. Fourth page starts with the need for 400 plus acres. I did not have any changes. The 5th page, I do have a proposed change. In the middle of the page, it says proposed project. And it says this development area is 150 acres of the, and that should read 462
Already made
acre
it.
property.
Already made it
Perfect,
since you
perfect.
discussed it earlier. Yep.
Perfect. And just for the record, since this is recorded, the 6.58 acres was sold to Alexander on or about November 19th, 2019. It can be found book 36185, page 197 through 198. That's the only approved transfer off of map 22.
Well, can you say the book and page again, David?
Lot 22, map 7. It's book 36185,
Okay.
page 197 through 198.
Okay, I'll add that both on the first page and under the proposed project description.
Great, great. I didn't have any other changes on the 5th page. Looks like we're good. 6th page. Starts off with improvements to Marston Road. I did not have any suggested changes. Anybody else? Nope. The 7th page talks about town road standards is the first 3 words. Anybody have any proposed additions or changes to that? Okay. We're on to the 8th page. It starts out department and intends. Down at the bottom, it says right of entry and inspection. Right above that, you have 2 E's on include. I think at the bottom, it says right of entry and inspection. That sentence addition, it looks like there's just a couple minor typos in that. All ATVs must meet the state requirements. I think requirements is just has transposed the E and the R.
Oh, yep.
And then there's a Q. I think there may be an extra Q at the end of that sentence, and then the rest of it's good.
Yep. Surprise spell check.
Okay.
I didn't pick it up, but good. Thank you. Okay.
Because it's. Did somebody want to say something? Or just Lee J and I go? Okay. The next page is page 9. Starts off with register. If you go down to O, should the word park actually be campground? Or is park amenities, is that a term of art?
That's a good question. We can change it to campground. I don't see anything legally that's gonna hang it up, and it'll be clearer for you.
Yeah, so there's
I can
3
change that.
times in that, 3 times in O that use the word, the word park is used. I think we should just use campground.
Can do.
Okay, and then down, and this is more of a discussional item, Lee J, so you don't have to type quickly. It says archery here. Now, in my reading of the insurance policy, archery activities appeared to be excluded. So I would propose to strike the ability to engage in archery because it's not insured. But obviously, I want to hear from the applicant and the rest of the board on that. I may have misread the insurance policy, but it looked like any archery activities were excluded. So is it okay for the applicant to strike archery? Yeah, okay.
So
Is the rest of the board? Yeah, go ahead, Lee J. Sorry.
Well, I was just going to say that to make it easy under archery, I could indicate that the applicant is not proposing or allowed to participate with archery, or I can come up with some wording and just leave archery in there and indicate that it's not permitted. Or I can strike
Yeah,
it
well,
altogether.
Why don't we strike it all together? Because I have a suggested additional condition that basically says that if it's not permitted, it's prohibited. So.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, so archery is out. Any other changes on that page or suggested discussion items?
David, I have one. Is that okay? I just, going back maybe the page earlier where it talks about noise, it brought up for me that we had talked in our last meeting about decibels at the property boundary and noise, and then there was a discussion about asking the selectmen to see if they were gonna, buy a decibel reader, and then we never came back to it. Just wanted to know if now's the time to discuss that, or if we should talk about that at the end when we're talking conditions.
Where are you, Nickel? Just so I have a beat on it.
I was on the bottom of page 9, just where that talks about the potential generation of noise, dust, odor, vibration, and then we kind of go through and cover all of them except noise. And we had sort of, in our 528 meeting, we had proposed 67 decibels at the property boundary by 10 p.m. And there was kind of a discussion that we put to the selectmen to ask about buying a decibel reader, and if that was something that we wanted to enforce. So the suggestion was that maybe we could forego a problem by being able to say they're in compliance and this is the decibel level that we've set as a condition. I don't know, Dwight, if that conversation happened or if that's something we need to consider as we're making conditions here.
This has been brought up here a couple of times before and stuff. And I don't see a problem if we got to buy a decimal meter for $125 to, just to check stuff.
Okay, I mean, that was a question. Yeah, so if that's reasonable, then I would propose we add something in about that. And what we had proposed was 67 decibels at the property boundary at 10 p.m.
What line are you on, Nickel?
The lines didn't come through in the version I printed out. I'm sorry.
Okay, that's all right.
Bottom of page 9. I don't know where it would be right to add it into the document, but it talks about the potential generation of noise, dust, odor, vibration, glare, smoke, litter, etc. And then we address all of those things except noise.
There's a section in here about bands and music.
Yes, on the top of the next page.
Yeah, and that was where we had the discussion about noise and decibel levels, and we agreed at that meeting to put in here, the times and the decibel levels and things like that. David had suggested the specific language, but I don't think it made it into the version we have here.
Well,
Matt, so going back to our minutes, the reason it was a proposed thing, but we kicked it to the selectmen to see if they were willing to buy a decibel reader. So we never actually put it in there or came up with it as a suggestion. But the language we had was 67 decibels at the property boundary.
I didn't think that putting that information or that condition in here was contingent on buying a decibel reader. Just difference of interpretation.
Joe, you have your hand up.
Yes, I wonder where the 67 decibels comes from, and I ask that because when we were talking about the conditional use permit for the woods to make pellets behind the school, if I remember correctly, the decibel level then was 50 decibels during the day and 45 at night, and that was a state requirement that Tony told us about. So I was wondering where the 67 came from.
I had
believe it
looked
came
up,
from Lee Feldman. Didn't he suggest it?
Well, slow down. We can't all talk at the same time because it can't process. So Nickel, why don't you go first, and then Matt, you go second.
I thought the number 67 came from you, Lee J, because you said other towns had used that. I believe that's where we got that from.
They use 60 or 70. I wouldn't have gotten so specific with 67. But you know, whatever you guys want to do is fine by me.
60
Matt,
to
did you have a follow-up?
Not 60 to 70, but 60 or 70.
Yeah, I looked up some state noise information, and there was a list of noise levels, and I think 67 decibels was like the noise of a vacuum cleaner or something like that. And you know, we had talked about it, and you know, somehow, you know, 67 decibels, since it came from a state source, was what we had agreed on. I don't remember the exact source.
I was just looking for consistency of the planning board requirement being the same
Yeah.
for all applicants of whatever they do, whether they make pellets or guitar sounds.
Any other discussion?
Should I go look at the wood CUP really quickly? I have access to it. Would that be helpful?
Let me see if no, I don't think I have it readily available. I don't have it readily available. Well, I think the first question for the board is the board interested in setting a decibel level for which the applicant cannot exceed? Yeah, Nickel.
Can I just read what's in the wood CUP really quickly?
Sure. Oh yeah, if you have it, sure. I'm not hearing you, Nickel, if you're saying anything.
On mute. You're on mute.
I think he might be talking to himself.
No, I'm good. Sorry. I was flipping between documents and hitting the comma button wasn't working. Hang on. Sorry. We said sound mitigation, wooden barriers of some kind, 16 feet, and we said a maximum sound average of 45 decibels from 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. and 55 decibels from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. to be measured at the property line in accordance with DEP procedure. So it was 45 at night and 55 during the day.
That's something that, yes, Jeff.
If I remember correctly, last time, I believe it was kind of left to do regular activities in the daytime, and then there was a certain time of day where they had to limit themselves to, and it wasn't 7 p.m., it was like 10 p.m.
10 p.m. is what I've got under
Yeah.
live music.
Yeah. Anyway, I just want to make sure that we weren't straying too far from what we had talked about.
So it looks like the proposal on the table is to include a decibel maximum for the applicant. And I think the use of the average was purposeful in the sense of you're not looking at momentary peak noise, you're looking at consistent noise. So I think that language was purposeful. But I think the proposal on the table is that there be a maximum average noise level of 47 decibels from 10 p.m. to 7 a.m. and then 55 decibels from 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. Is that something that the board wants to add to the conditions?
Yes.
I don't have strong feelings on it, so that's why I'm not leading on this one. Is I don't know whether this is right or wrong, so I'm kind of looking for the direction of everybody else. Here, Matt Fricker said yes, it's something he'd like to entertain. Bob, Nickel, Matt Sanborn, Joe. Go ahead, Nickel.
I would propose, I mean, we were originally talking about just limiting them at night, and I think the idea of 45 being consistent with what we've limited other people before, I would propose that we say 45 decibel levels at the property line from 10 p.m. to 7 a.m. And I'm less concerned about during the day.
Oh, was it 45? I'm sorry, I wrote down 47. I apologize. Okay. Okay, so that's an alternate proposal on the table. Jeff, I'm coming to you in a second. Is there anybody else from the board that wants to weigh in on this before we hear from the applicant? Matt Sanborn?
Yeah, so looking at a chart, basically 45 decibels is, 25 is a whisper, and 40 is a suburban area at night. And then we get up to 60 to 70, and we're talking about a normal conversation between two people. So anywhere between 40 and 70 is pretty much acceptable as far as I'm concerned. You know, once you get up into the 80s is when things would be probably annoying to a neighbor, in my opinion. So I don't know if that helps.
And remember, this is at the property line, not at the source. So you know, the sound mitigated, it would be mitigated between the property line and the source. Other discussion from the board, and then I'm going to go to Jeff. I don't see anybody else from the board. Jeff, yeah.
I was just going to Matt's point, I've been involved in a few projects that have had sound requirements on them. And exactly to Matt's point, the problem is that the property line, there is a right of way that goes through this thing. Someone could stand right there at the main entrance on Marston's Road. And if somebody were to start up a car or honk their horn, then Nature's Wilderness would be immediately in violation of that particular condition. So we can't have that too low, and there's got to be some bit of common sense in there that it's not meant to be a kind of gotcha thing. It's meant to be the community at large isn't suffering from, you know, rampant noise.
Yeah, Lee J.
David, I mean, I guess I don't know exactly what the board is thinking, but I would suggest adding that to the live music piece to make sure that at 10 o'clock it cuts off, and that, you know, whatever it may be, but, you know, the decibel level, even what Jeff is talking about, I mean, I agree with, because even DEP talks about, you know, it's not the intermittent sounds that are the issue.
Right.
It's the continuous loud noise. And so if we add this to the live music piece and they're supposed to cut off at 10 p.m., then you're not talking about a continuous loud noise. There may be an intermittent sound where, yeah, someone honks or someone bangs on something. It's hard to control that, and you're not measuring it, but it's not a continuous noise.
Yeah, I think that's why they use the max average, is so it's not, you know, like one backup beacon in a truck would be in violation of this, because that's in the 75 range, even a distance away. So so it sounds to me like the board there's a consensus of the board who would like to put a max decibel at the property line between 10 p.m. and 7 a.m. So then the more definitive question, or the more specific question, is the exact decibel level. Matt Sanborn's advocating somewhere between 40 and 70. I hear Matt Fricker advocating for 45. Nickel is somewhat advocating for 45 based on consistency, and I think Joe is seeking consistency as well. So let's discuss the decibel level we're talking about. Matt had his hand up first, and then Joe.
So
Matt Fricker,
I
I'm sorry.
think that, yeah, I think that at night, you know, from 10 p.m. to 7 a.m., if we want to go with the 45 level to be consistent with, you know, the planning board's prior activities, that's okay. But I do think that the conversation that we had was specifically related to the live music entertainment. And that's where I think this should appear in the conditions. And I think that somewhere between 60 and 70, whether it's specifically 67 or not, but somewhere between 60 and 70 was, you know, where we had ended up for the noise level at the property line during the entertainment, so that, you know, if there's a band playing from 7 o'clock to 10 o'clock, it's not vibrating the neighbor's windows. And, you know, we were setting this up to try and avoid the situation like they had down at Rock Way, where there was just a whole host of problems and complaints while they were trying to get this under control. And we were trying to head that off by setting a decibel level, an appropriate decibel level for during the entertainment.
All right, let me see if I can. So, I'm sorry, Joe, you had your hand up. Do you want to go before I say something?
Sure. Well, I'm recused from consideration of this CUP, but as a member of the public and in general as a planning board member, I'm in favor of the planning board being consistent from one applicant to another. And so if we set a noise level for Tony and Dean Wood, I consider that as you set a noise level.
So how about this? I'm just trying to look for compromise here. That we, in the live music portion, we set a maximum 70 decibel limit at the property line, max average for the live music presentation, and then 45 decibels at the property line from 10 p.m. to 7 a.m. With the understanding that the testing or the reading cannot happen on Marstons Road. I agree with Jeff that it's unfair for the decibel reading to occur on the road, which separates the property. It has to be on an external property line, not the road. I think that's a compromise position. If we find that this is too restrictive, I would suggest the applicant come back and we can get we'll have some data on why it's too restrictive. If it's not restrictive enough and there's a significant amount of neighbors who are concerned, we always have phase 2 and phase 3 to have those discussions if we need to change it. So, you know, remember, we're not making this forever. We're making this on a fairly small campsite. And so I think that's I'm pitching a compromise here. And it's a max average. It's not peak noise. How does that sound, board?
Just for additional information, David, I looked up a decibel level comparison chart at Yale University. and the normal conversation is 60 to 70. The vacuum cleaner is 75. Chamber music in a small auditorium is 75 to 85. The level at which sustained exposure may result in hearing loss is between 80 and 90. So, you know, I think, you know, if you're suggesting 70, that's like 5 decibels below chamber music in a small auditorium. So I don't think we could go wrong there. I mean, 55 is the level of a household refrigerator. 40 is a suburban area at night. So I mean, we have to allow them to make enough noise to entertain the people in the campground.
Right, right. And you know, I think they're going to be smart about mitigation techniques too. That if you play the music into the tree, you know, such that the trees are a buffer, you're going to reduce the noise very quickly. So I'm just trying to find a compromise because I don't really have strong feelings about this.
I don't think it really matters, David. I mean, we're arguing, you are arguing over something that doesn't matter because they're going to want to have quiet time. They're going to be people who are not there for the music, who are going to want to go to bed and go to sleep. So I don't think this is something that really matters.
I think what you suggested is fine.
Okay. So, Lee J, we're adding in the requirement under live music that there not be a maximum average of more than 70 decibels at the property line while the live music is being played, and between 10 p.m. and 7 a.m. at the property line, there won't be more than a max average of 45 decibels, with the express understanding that the readings may not be conducted on Marston's Road.
Yep, I've got all 3 of those, and I can blend that wording right in together at the end of the underlined section, under live music.
Great.
Yep.
Great. Okay. Any further discussion of the live music portion? Okay. I did not have any additional changes to page 10. Anybody else? Great. Page 11, I did not have any changes. Okay. Page 12. In point 9.5, there's a reference to the 398 that needs to be changed to 462.
Thank you.
And then at the end of that provision, I believe it needs to say that the campground will give notice to property owners within, I think we agreed on 1/10 of a mile, 10 days prior to a fireworks display. So I know we have several people who have horses or other animals, dogs in that area, and I think it's neighborly to give them notice so they can take precautions if their animals are frightened by it. Yes, Joe?
I believe that the one person with horses nearby might be more than 1/10 of a mile. I think that's a little short distance, 1/10 of a mile.
Is she on Marston's Road?
No, she's on Senator Black Road.
Yeah.
I
It
was
could be
just-
fireworks aren't as loud as machinery that is unmuffled, but she
Yeah.
had problems with that.
I was just wondering if there's any way that we could put in, I mean, obviously giving them notice, I can't imagine a certified letter is necessary. Like, would it be okay to just have an email list type thing where, hey, you know, we're sending out an email. Here you go.
Yeah. Yeah, Gary. Yeah. No, you're muted.
We put a sign up at the end of the road saying fireworks in 10 days or something like that. That would alert all the local neighbors that's within,
Yeah.
on Marston Road, all the people that travel up beyond us. And the lady that Joe's talking about with the horse, she's up Senator Black from us. If we put a sign out asking us to send a registered letter to everybody, that's a
No.
bit much,
I
or
was,
even an
yeah.
email list. But if I just put a sign out at the end of the road, a little trifold sign, and fireworks in 7 days, whatever it is, however many days, that should cover it. All the neighbors will see it.
Thoughts on the board? So a sign at the intersection of, so a sign at the entrance to the facility and a sign at the corner of Marston's Road and Senator Black. Nicole's going to say, can you put signs up? Oh, yeah, go ahead, Nicole.
I mean, we have a unifying notifying system. Can we just, is it unreasonable to say put an ad in the shopper's guide?
A lot of people don't read it.
Really? What are you
I
talking
think
about?
I think a sign at the end of the
Yeah, I
road
mean,
that neighbors have to drive by is 100%
Yeah.
guaranteed they're going to see it. Shopper's guide, they may not see it. Email, they may not get it. It could go to junk. A sign at the end of the road will 100% notify all the neighbors.
At the end of
Yeah.
Marston's Road?
Yes.
Yeah, I tend to agree with Gary. Yeah, a sign at the entrance to the campground, and then a sign at the corner of Marston's Road and Senator Black. And I think what will happen is neighbors will let neighbors know as well. So if you see the sign go up, everybody's going to start calling around. I think that's plus if people change addresses, I mean, if they're renters, I mean, I think I agree. Notice via the sign is probably the most effective way. And if it's not, we always have phase 2 to have that discussion.
Phase 2 is going to be much easier. You guys are going to be surprised. Everything's going to go nice and smooth.
Okay, I'll craft some wording under there for you to address this exactly as discussed tonight.
Okay. I don't have anything else on page 12 or page 13. I don't have anything else on page 14. Page 15. I just had some very minor suggested changes to the board. In the middle of the page, it says the campground shall only operate between the dates of May 1st and October 31st. After the word operate, I wanted to add, so the campground shall only operate and be open to the public between those dates. Operate was a little vague to me, so I felt.
Fair enough. Yep.
So we got some discussion here. Gary to Nickel.
Operate means if I'm there building cabins for the next season, that's not going to fall under operate. As long as we're not open to the public, I'm fine to be on the property, building, etc.
So I will
Right.
strike operate and then add the alternate wording about being open to the public. How's that, Gary? Does that work for you?
That works for me. Yeah. And then on that same, oh, I'm sorry, Nicole, go ahead.
I was just going further down the page. You may be getting to it, so go ahead.
Oh, yeah. So on that same bullet point, the additional language, it says manage, so that with the exception of the campground manager, property owner, or family living within the existing house, I'd like to add immediate family.
Gotcha.
And then the only other change I had was the third bullet point from the bottom. It uses the word park. And I'd like that changed to campground. It says the applicant shall post a letter of credit. Yeah.
Construction on the campground. Yep. Gotcha.
Yeah. All right. Anything else on page 15, Nicole?
So second bullet point up from the bottom, I just didn't remember. I thought we talked about hunting after the campground was closed, and that says no hunting.
Yeah, I left that in there because the insurance says no hunting. So I don't know, Gary or Jeff, how you want to handle that.
Well, there'll obviously be no hunting when the campground's open till October 31st. But after that, we're okay to hunt on the property.
Yeah, just not as a commercial enterprise.
Exactly.
Yeah, so I think it is right. We should add a proviso to that.
Yep, within the campground, boundary of the campground of the property owned by the campground or any other entity. Until after.
While the campground is, well, actually, why don't you just put between the dates of May 1st and October 31st?
Right.
Yep.
Sorry, yeah, Nicole.
So then last bullet point, this may be semantics, but I think it's important. It says no personal fireworks shall be allowed at the campground. I understand what we're saying is campers camping fireworks, but I think we should say that because we're talking about Gary and other folks buying personal fireworks to shoot off. And so I just want to be clear in the language. That makes sense.
There's in the campground rules, no campers can have fireworks on the property or light them off. It's only for campground personnel.
So I think
Yeah,
that's
so-
what we should say here, so it's consistent.
Campers shall have no personal fireworks at the campground. Campers shall not use personal fireworks at campground. Campers shall not use personal fireworks at campground. Yeah.
Right.
Because we can't say they can't have them because they could be in their car and
Right, but they can't light them
can't
off on the
control that.
property.
Yeah, exactly.
Gotcha. Yep.
That's good modification.
Yep.
And so can you just add the signage requirement to the end of that fireworks bullet point, which just mimics what was earlier said about the fireworks?
Yes.
Okay. So that's all the changes I had. I had a few proposals, but before we leave what Lee J did, is there any other comments, questions, or concerns? Nicole, you have your hand up.
Maybe you just said this, I'm sorry, but the very last bullet point in the document says no firearms discharge. I think we should put the dates too. Otherwise you'd have to hunt.
Between May 1st and October 31st. What it is?
Gotcha.
All right. So any other changes, comments, concerns, or qualifications to what Lee J prepared? All right. So a long time ago, I put forth a list of what I thought the campground was not going to do, and we talked about it a little bit. I think this was like September of last year. So I took that list and I looked it over and added a few things. And I have a list of 12 items that I'd like to be prohibited in the campground. I don't believe the applicant's asking to do any of them. The first one is, and these are directly responding to things that have been said by either Scott Efron or other representatives of the applicant at some time during this long journey. And I think the applicant has said they're not going to do them. I just want them in the permit to be expressed. So there's a list of 12 things. The first one is not to construct a natural or man-made amphitheater. The second one is not to construct horse stables or other buildings where horses are kept. And part of that was driven by things that were said, and part of it was driven by the insurance that excluded horseback riding from the policy. So I added that.
Can I stop you just for a second,
Yeah.
David? If you have those and the board is fine with all of those, can you just send that to me so rather than me trying to keep up and write it all down?
I did. At 6:45, I sent it to you.
Oh, you did? Perfect.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
You were probably already focused on this meeting and didn't check your email.
Okay. Thanks.
The next one is commercial or recreational watercross activities would be prohibited. And I think we talked about this already. I don't think the applicant's any longer seeking to do that. The next is commercial or recreational racing or other organized contests involving ATVs, UTVs, motorbikes, snowmobiles, or other motorized vehicles, whether on-road or off-road use. I think the applicant said they're not interested in conducting races on the property. The next one is any commercial or recreational snowmobiling activities or commercial activities of other motorized vehicles for use on snow. This one I want to allow the use of the trails for snowmobilers, just not as a campground activity. Like I think, and we've talked about this, Gary, like you should be able to use the trails for snowmobiles, just not as an organized activity at the campground. And so I thought about, adding something with the exception of using the trails with the rest of the snowmobile trails in the area or something like that, because I think that's the type of use you want to do. I don't think that's a problem. I just don't want you to have 50 or 100 people at the campground for a snowmobile activity. And so finding that distinction is a little bit elusive to me. So it's something about except for use with the rest of the local snowmobile infrastructure. I don't know how to, does that sound okay, guys? Okay, let me keep going. We're halfway. Another thing I'd like prohibited is the commercial and residential use of the property outside the designated dates of operation, with the exception of the manager, owner, immediate family members living at the residential house on the property may engage in recreational use of the property, provided it's consistent with the limitations on the campground. So that's just making sure it's not used except for as provided in the permit. The next one is commercial or recreational activities for individuals who are not renting a camping or RV site at the facility, with the exception of limited guests of renters. And so that's, again, not attracting people to the property who are not renters. The next one is no commercial hunting activities outside the designated dates of operation. We can actually strike that because that's already covered. Nickel identified that. No commercial ice fishing activities. Again, that's a reaction to the insurance rider that says you cannot conduct commercial ice fishing. I highly doubt you can conduct commercial ice fishing on your property, but the next one is no sale, lease, or other type of conveyance of any portion of the existing 462-acre lot. That we're granting a permit based on the application of a 462-acre lot, and so it should not be diminished because we're granting the permit with that understanding that that's the property in use. 11 is no expansion of the campground activities beyond the property lines of the existing 462-acre lot. So again, we're granting a use permit for 462 acres, not for the adjoining properties that may or may not come into possession of Nature's Wilderness or anybody else. That if they want to use more than the 462 acres, they need to come back and expand that use onto those properties. And then the last one is any use permitted or allowed under the Baldwin Land Use Ordinance that is not expressly permitted by the written terms of the conditional use permit or addressed by the operative submission of the applicant, so something they put in their application that they're going to do. If it's not in either the CUP or the application, the use should be strictly prohibited. So if you haven't told us you're going to do it, and we haven't agreed that you can do it with the conditions, you may not do it. So I can't think of what that would be, but you can't start a marijuana growing plant, or, I mean, I'm just trying to, yeah, I don't know what else is out there, but, you know, we were very clear that we wanted you to ask for everything you wanted to do. So if you haven't asked for it and it hasn't been granted, you can't do it. Yeah, Gary.
If things change, we can come back in front of the board and ask, correct?
Absolutely, and I see this as an ongoing relationship with Nature's Wilderness, that now that we've reached this plateau, we're going to continue to have discussions as this goes on. But I feel like we need to have that plateau and have a very clear understanding, and I think these additional conditions would be helpful to me to feel comfortable. So board, do those additional conditions seem appropriate? I see no reaction. Oh, there, Matt Fricker.
Yes, they do. I have a couple of questions. We don't specify any time periods in here. And throughout the previous document, you know, we talked about between May and October and stuff, but I think that particularly with 3, 4, 6, you know, as well as 8 and 9, it's intended for full year, not just the time that the campground's open.
Absolutely. These all would apply whether or not the campground is open. These would be applicable to year-round, any activity on the property.
So under 4, minor point, it says whether for on-road or off-road use. Does off-road include on a frozen pond?
Absolutely. I think the applicant's been clear that there'll be no watercross activities on the property, in season or out of season.
No, watercross is a definite happening.
So with these additions, I'm comfortable as one member of the board that we have a workable condition. It's not perfect. There's going to be a group of people who are not happy that this is occurring, but there's also going to be a group of people who are happy that this is occurring. And I think it's consistent with our conditional use permit or ordinance, and that we've worked very hard to balance the interest of abutting and adjacent or nearby property owners with Nature's Wilderness right to conduct business on their property under the terms of the ordinance. So is there anything else that the board feels or any members of the public feel should be considered before we, as a board, consider the permit?
You've done a wonderful job, David. Congratulations.
Yeah.
It's been a difficult time.
Well, the applicant's done a great job, you know, whether by hook or crook or whatever you say. I mean, I think the applicant's done an admirable job of modifying the application to meet the interest of the public. So I think it's been a group effort, no question. Lee J has done a great job too, documenting all this. So, all right, so we don't have the conditions, all the conditions written down because Lee J has a little bit more work modifying the language, but I think the applicant is comfortable that it will be consistent with what we've talked about today. So I would entertain a motion that we approve the conditional use permit application of Nature's Wilderness with the conditions and findings of fact offered by Lee J, the additional conditions that were discussed here tonight, particularly the additional conditions I spoke about, and the standard conditions that we put on every conditional use permit application. And so there would be three parts at this juncture. I'd be interested in entertaining a motion to approve stage one of the campground permit application. Matt Fricker.
I was just going to second your motion that we should vote.
How about I make the
Okay.
motion?
So what you were looking for?
Matt Sanborn?
I'll
Matt
make the
Sanborn, are you
motion.
making the motion?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Matt
So
Fricker.
it's the Matt Fricker seconding. That's awesome. So it's the Lee J statements and findings and conditions. It's the Strzok additional conditions that we discussed tonight, and it's the standard conditions that we put on every application that is the one page we got from the lawyer. And then obviously the application will be part of the conditional use permit, which has all the details of what the project will be. There is a motion on the floor to approve on that basis. Any discussion of the motion, I believe, Joe, you're recusing yourself, and you have been recusing yourself? Okay. So any discussion of the motion on the floor? All right, we'll go to vote. All those in favor of approving Nature's Wilderness application as stated? It's unanimous with Joe recusing himself from the vote.
So that's a 5-0 vote? I just want to make sure, because I'm going to document.
4-0. Yeah,
4-0.
Bob's an alternate, but
Okay.
I think we
And,
value.
and who will sign the findings? Will it just be you, David, or will it be the entire board?
I'd ask for the board to grant me authority to sign on behalf of the board.
I verbally
I'll,
grant you
make-
authority.
Okay, so
All those
I
in
will,
favor? All those in
I will-
favor of me signing on behalf? Okay.
I'll just put a line item in there for you to sign and date for the next meeting.
Yeah.
Or whenever. Yep.
Yeah, we can do it. We don't have to wait till the next meeting. I can do it outside of the meeting.
Okay,
and
once I
you
get
and
this
I-
cleaned
you-
up.
Yeah, you and I can go back, just typographically, make sure it's exactly what we want. And then I'll probably send it to Jeff and Gary for a final look over to make sure that you don't have any concern. Because Gary, you're going to be signing it as well. So I want to make sure it's consistent. Yeah, Nico.
Can I just ask, since we're making so many edits, can the whole board just look at it one more time?
Sure, I can distribute it to the board, and if anybody has any questions, let me know. But I think I have authority to sign it consistent with what the vote was. So just let me know if you have a problem, but we're not going to wait till the next meeting to sign off on it.
I agree. I just think we tend to catch things when we all look at it. That's all.
Okay. Any questions from the applicant?
No, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Finally.
Yeah, it's a long road. Tell the guy who called me today, don't call me again.
Will do.
He just added confusion to the case.
Will do.
So, all right, so good. I feel like going to bed, but we have more to do. So Nature's Wilderness is now complete, at least stage one, and we have a path forward. Jeff, Gary, my expectation is that by Monday you should have the signed, maybe Tuesday you should have the signed provision in your hand.
Excellent. Thank you.
Yeah. And good luck. I think all of us on the board really do wish you the best of luck. So, all right. So other things on the board, I see Jamie, Lenny, Ted are all here. Yeah,
Nice
Lisa,
working
you're
with
good.
all of you. Nice working with all of you, and we'll probably see you again in the future.
Yeah, thank you for all your help,
Thank you,
EJ, and
EJ.
thank you.
All right, take care.
Thanks. So,
Hello?
yes, Nicole.
So just because I have a public hearing to notice, I don't know how to notice the public hearing because I don't know where we're doing it or how we're doing it. So I wasn't sure what to put in the shopper's.
Just remind me what you're noticing.
It was the subdivision for July 9th that we talked about at the end of the last meeting. I can't remember the gentleman's name.
Water's Edge.
That's the
Water's
Water's Edge. Yes.
Is that Ted Terrio?
Yeah. Do you have the paperwork on that? Nicole, do you have the paperwork on that?
I believe I have
Water's
it electronically somewhere. I didn't know what to put. Like, do I say it's going to be either remotely or at town hall? I wasn't sure what to say.
Understood. I totally missed your question. So board, let's talk about that right now. Dwight, did the selectmen meeting go okay?
Yeah, it went very good. Everything was disinfected before we got started. The 6-foot distancing was all taken, well done, and yeah, it went very good.
Okay. Did you do it in the selectmen's office or did you do it in the gym?
No, we did it in the conference room beside the selectman's office. Then we just met Tuesday night, and we was just in the selectman's office Tuesday night, and that seemed to work good too. We didn't have a lot of people, I don't know.
Yeah. Can we, if we hold the next meeting at the in the gym, can we use that gym?
I don't know why not. We'll just have to make sure the kids' stuff is all out of there.
There's no activities going on though, is there?
Not at night. not until after 6 o'clock, up until 6 o'clock, the after-school program thing here is going on right now.
Okay. Nico, yeah, you had a question?
I was just wondering if folks are wearing masks or what we're doing, because I'm concerned about a public hearing and we have no idea how many people will show up, and just being prepared to manage it. That's all.
Yeah. Does the town have masks, Dwight?
Yes, they do. There's a table just as you walk in the door right there where there's hand sanitizer and masks. And we strongly suggest that people wear masks.
Well, I think we should set the gym up in such a way that we can all sit at least 6 feet apart. And you know, I think for the first meeting, we should all wear masks. If you're going to show up, you should agree to wear a mask for the first meeting, and have the next meeting live at the gym with the expectation that we're wearing masks, and there may be 1 or 2 tables for people. Like if Nicole's going to be there, then he's got to type, so you know it'd be nice for him to have a table, but that we all sit at least 6 feet apart, and we hold the next meeting that way. I think I offered to work on the protocols. I think the masks are probably the key.
And keep having the windows open.
Yes. Yeah, we can have the windows open. We can have I mean, it sounds like that. I went into the town office the other day. They were actually pretty well prepared with hand sanitizer, masks, and you know, we can ask it to be disinfected to the extent possible before we come in after the kids leave, and then you know we can disinfect it ourselves. Would the majority of the board be able to show up for a meeting with those parameters? Okay. And if you can't, then don't. You know, like everybody has their own personal situation, and this is a volunteer board. You know, if we need to miss a few meetings because of this or that, that's fine. We'll work through it. But I don't think we can have a public hearing very effectively online. I'm just afraid of, you know, the public hearing aspect. So Nico, if you could notice it for the gymnasium at the town office, we'll do that. So that's Ted's Water's Edge subdivision, right? All right. So the other folks that we have here are Jamie and Lenny.
David?
Last time, yes, Matt Fricker.
In the announcement, the public hearing announcement, can we specify that masks are required? You know, when you go out and about Baldwin and Cornish and things like that, there's an awful lot of people who just don't understand that, you know, my mask protects you, but your mask protects me. And there's a lot of people who are out there not wearing masks. And what we don't want to have as a situation is that the board and the CEO and the selectmen and everybody are in there and we're all wearing masks, and then a bunch of people from the public troop in and you have a half a dozen people who are just non-believers in wearing masks. And then, you know, everybody in the room is at risk if we stay there the rest of the night.
Yeah, we wouldn't stay there the rest of the night. They can
Well,
stand outside the windows and listen.
What if we were to put some sort of a barrier in between the board and the public? So if somebody's not wearing a mask, at least they're the 6 feet away.
Yeah, I would just say they can stand outside and listen through the window. I mean, that's none of us on
No
this
mask,
board.
no entry.
Yeah, I mean, it's not that hard. I mean, I don't know about you guys, but I've worn about 30 of them in the last week. So, yeah, if you could say masks will be required, that'd be great, Nicole. I'd appreciate that. I think that's a great point, Matt Fricker. So, Jamie, Lenny, where did we leave it? So, Lenny and I traded emails over the past couple days, week. I don't know how long it's been. Lenny obviously is motivated to get this done and curious what needs to happen to get it done. I tried to have him just listen to the last meeting because I thought we kind of provided a pretty good roadmap at the last meeting at what needed to happen. But my recollection, I could be wrong on this. I apologize if I'm wrong, but my recollection is that the applicant was going to look at the subdivision ordinance and determine if there needed to be modifications to their proposal to avoid any major issues, particularly the driveway issue. I had a concern with that, and then resubmit or submit a modification. I could be wrong, so whoever wants to address the situation, feel free.
Hey guys, yeah, so if you don't mind, I'll just touch base. A couple of takeaways from last meeting that I got after being in the meeting and then rewatching it on the YouTube channel there was to determine the number of lots that were going to be divided, and then to establish an acceptable access way to then access those. And then having reviewed the subdivision plans, my takeaway from that was essentially that, we don't want multiple driveways to service these multiple lots off of Route 113 in this case. So by doing that, I think we've come up with a bit of a suggestion I'd like to throw out to the board to see if that would help facilitate this a little bit. So what I did is I reached out to Anthony Fontaine. He's the State of Maine DOT permit and driveway approval guy. And talking to him about when they issued driveway permits, their permits actually, we're allowed to service up to 5 houses off that one driveway. So in this case, it would be somewhat of feasible to then take the current driveway of the existing new house lot to then service the lots. However, it's almost unrealistic because of the way the house is positioned on the parcel itself. It's so far off. It almost hugs that corner lot of L1, which would be then L2 to service that. So my proposal or my suggestion might be to offer, see if the board would approve, access, maybe right in the division line of L3 and L2, to then use that to service those remaining lots to make things easier for sure. And then view lot 1 as an existing grandfathered lot, because that was permitted based on, it was permitted based on a single lot, in this circumstance for sure. And if we were to do that, then we're only looking at the division of L2 and 3 for access on that driveway. That might be an easier solution for sure.
Yeah, it's just tough. I mean, look, I think we all feel for your situation. We're just trying not to do something for you that we're not going to do for the next guy, it's just trying to figure out how to do this, that we can be consistent with the ordinance and not bend so far that we run into problems next time. Like theoretically, no, I don't want to go down that road. So, board, what do you guys think? I did my job tonight. I got Nature's Wilderness finished, so now it's the rest of the board's turn. Joe, Matt, Bob. Yeah, Joe.
I'm having a difficult time because I don't have the plans in front of me. And I'm having a hard time envisioning this and seeing what's going on.
Well, basically, he's just saying we would allow the driveway to stay and that there would be only one additional access point to the, quote, subdivision which would be farther down the road.
And just dividing the two parcels, L2 and 3, to service those.
Right.
Two. Yeah.
And the problem with that, just technically, is that what should happen is that they should use Deacon Road as an access for the other two properties if they're not going to use the problem is the driveway, the ordinance says driveways are not supposed to be onto rooted roads.
To service the subdivision, correct. But in this case, if we look at that, the one that was permitted and approved, so the issuance of the occupancy permit, the permitted side was originally for that over the entire parcel, if you look at it in that position. So that house lot, and as of right now, the plan is not to build, put any more houses up there. It's actually to service the existing lease agreement for Walden Renewables, for sure. And their position is that they just want to split that up as a division. So, I mean, anything that they do beyond that, as far as, if they were to come back and say, hey, I need more for anything, we're only asking for two lots to the access of this driveway.
Right. But the second access would be fine because it's not a driveway. See, that's the problem, is it's a driveway. That's the essential issue. And that's why I was trying. So Joe, what I think we suggested last time was, we said, look, turn the driveway into an access road. So, because you can have an access road, you just can't have a driveway. So the access road would provide access to the house lot and the lot behind the house lot. But what Lenny is saying is that that's really difficult to do because the way the house and the driveway are placed on the parcel that Jamie's willing to sell him, they're at the very edge. So he can't move the driveway away from the house to be more of an access road rather than a driveway. So it's configured in a difficult way. I was trying to find a way around him taking out the driveway. Yeah, Joe.
I'm also unclear as to how many lots we're talking about subdividing this lot into, because we were talking 4 or 5 lots last meeting, and what are we talking?
4.
Okay, 4. And how many lots are we talking now? Still talking 4?
Yes.
Yeah. Joe, so I'm looking at the CUP that we got last time, and the little house lot across from the town office is 2.5 acres, is L1. And then the lot that encompasses or contains that L1 is L2, and that's about 50 acres. And then going west, you have an 80-acre lot, which is L3. And that's the one that also borders Deacon Road. And then L4, which is not labeled on the map, would be the 8.5-acre parcel on the other side of Deacon Road that is currently up for sale. So those, I think, are the 4 lots: L1, L2, L3, and L4.
So I mean, Lenny, some of the, and Jamie, I mean, some of the principles that we kind of go by are that the applicant cannot create his own hardship. Like, you can't create a situation that the board has to fix. So here, like, you created the driveway, you kind of created your own problem, and you're looking at it from the point of view that I didn't intentionally do it. Like, don't hold it against me. I didn't intentionally do it, which we get. But that's, the theory is you can't create, like, you can't create your own hardship as kind of one theory. Another theory is that we can't do for one applicant what we wouldn't do for the next 10. And so I think that's why we're struggling. We're trying to figure out how to solve your problem and not create a bigger one. And it's not that we don't want to help you or work with you. It's just like, how do we work with this? Nickel, you had your hand up.
I'm just asking a question. If the driveway becomes a right-of-way, is it no longer a driveway?
If it's an access road, it's not a driveway. So if it provides access to another lot, it would be an access road, which is not prohibited.
So can he grant access in the deed, but then also build another road as an access road elsewhere?
I don't know. I mean, it's what the board's willing to accept in terms of.
So all the research that I've done so far, like talking to the DOT and all that stuff, they'll issue these driveway permits all the time. It's the planning board and the subdivision ruling here at the town level that basically says, you know, you guys have decided, or the town has decided, that they want limited access off of 113 for one reason or another. And I think in this case, I think it's unique in that the division is a minor division, in that we have Deacon Road that services L4, and we also, and technically could service L3. So really what we're talking about is, you know, somehow getting to L2 without crossing over, you know, significantly L3.
Yeah, Jamie, do you know how they're planning to access L2?
I believe from preliminary talks I've had with them that they're going to make improvements to the existing takeout area that exists there now, logging road takeout area. All the existing logging roads kind of funnel down into a takeout area that is blocked with stone, big rocks, boulders currently. And
That's about 500 yards down from where Lenny's driveway is, isn't it? It's a bit of a distance, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's almost
Matt Fricker
there, right? Ooh, yeah, go for
Yeah.
Oh, Matt Fricker. Yeah.
Yeah. Can't you close off or eliminate the driveway that was cut into L1 and then, you know, create your access road into the L2 lot, and then off of that access road, you could have a driveway into L1, or the 2.5 acre lot. That way, all you've got coming off of 113 into L2, that 50 acre property, is one access road. And there's no driveways into L1 or L2. All there is that access road, and then you have to get from the access road to the 2.5 acre lot.
Yeah, I'll make it easy for Jamie and Lenny. I mean, so there's two problems with that. It's one problem is it's an additional encumbrance on Jamie's property. So so Lenny would have to ask Jamie for a significantly larger encumbrance. You know, there'd be a larger piece of Jamie's land that would be used by Lenny. And then the second part, which is probably the more difficult part, is Jamie and Lenny would have to get the agreement of the leaser of the L2 that their commercial access could be used as a driveway. And I'm not sure that they're going to want to do that. I mean, Jamie, Lenny, is that accurate?
Yeah, I would think so with what they're going to do for sure. Yeah.
Yes, I agree.
I try to make it easy on them because they were going to dance around that for a while. I'll just get it direct.
And looking at this, it legitimately looks like one more access point to service the to service L2 and L3. And if it was a legitimate 4-lot subdivision, that one access was off of 113 that was going to access all 4 of those, I can understand it. It just seems to be such a simple form from my perspective. And I know I understand where the board's coming from for sure, but with that, I think there's a takeout right now. I actually think there might be some sort of access from 113 that already exists somewhere within that division line, proposed division line.
So board, let me get your temperature on, we do have this principle, you can't create your own. So if the house already existed before he asked for a subdivision, there'd be no real issue because he built a house he built a house outside of a subdivision, and as long as DOT grants the permission, we don't have anything to say. The concern here is that in theory, he's asking for a subdivision that has a driveway onto 113. It's a peculiar situation, and typically we say, you can't create your own hazard and then have us try to fix it. But is the board interested in taking the position that the driveway existed before the subdivision was asked for and thus is pre-existing?
Yeah, that sounds good.
Joe,
to me.
you had your hand up. Matt says yes. Joe, what do you think?
I guess I'm willing to go along with that. I was advocating our last meeting that Jamie sell the lot to Lenny and then ask for a subdivision. And that would solve the problem to me in a much more elegant or much simpler way, actually. But if you want to go by saying the driveway was pre-existing, the problem is the DOT. Has the DOT approved the driveway yet?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And
I think this. Go ahead, Lenny.
I was just going to say, by no means are we're really trying to expose this the way it is so that, Jamie's covered for his terms and, the company that's going to come in and do their thing, everything's above board. We're not trying to sugarcoat or hide anything, that's for sure. This happened to be a mistake that, had I known that this was going to be the case, certainly myself and Jamie would have had a different conversation and before we got to this point for sure. So, and again, it was just a mishap, but everything suggested at the beginning that we were going for a single house lot with a similar size parcel, all that stuff. So there was, the second we found out about this, we wanted to definitely get it in front of you guys, and that would be great if we could appreciate it that way or look at it that way.
Bob, you had your hand up first, and Matt Fricker.
Hey, just wondering, where is this rule that we're trying to work? Is it in the subdivision ordinance or is it in a land use ordinance?
Subdivision.
I've had a hard time finding it. It doesn't mean it's not there, but.
$12.2. Nickel, are you willing to? 12.2, traffic conditions, access control.
David?
Matt Fricker, yes.
Yeah. So I just want to bring up the issue of resolving the town of any liability, because I'm believing that the whole concept of not having driveways from a subdivision onto a state highway is for safety purposes. And minimizing traffic accidents or crashes or something like that. So I just want to make sure that if we go ahead and approve that the driveway was pre-existing, I just want, which I'm okay with doing. I just want to make sure that, you know, when the DOT approved and evaluated this driveway, that they did all of the site evaluations for distance and things like that, so that we're not approving something which is an accident waiting to happen, because then if somebody gets in a bad accident and they can prove that the town did not follow its ordinances, that the town could be liable. So I just want to make sure we're okay from a liability and a safety standpoint if we go the pre-existing driveway route.
And if I can just note real quick, thank you very much for that, Matt. When the DOT issues these letters, they actually give the parameters as to like how big it has to be. And then when we submit the application, we have to disclose how far from the nearest intersection. And then when he comes out and he does his site evaluation, we get a letter that basically says that you can do the driveway, like in this case, there's a turnaround or a T. So we have that so that the residents can back in before they come out there. But they set that parameter when we get that letter for sure. And the copy of that letter is actually in the file folder for this house lot for sure.
Nico?
Yeah, I guess I want to challenge the fact that the applicant created the hardship, because Jamie's the applicant, right? And I would say that the hardship was created by Lenny building a house in the wrong place, right? And so, but to me, that's not the applicant, right? The applicant's being really gracious and trying to make this work. And so when I think about a precedent, I'm personally not that concerned about it, right? Like, this is the kind of precedent that makes sense to me. And I don't think the applicant created the hardship. That's all.
Yeah, I think we have to do a finding of fact that we believe that Lenny created the driveway with no intent to, or Jamie created the driveway with no intent to subvert the subdivision ordinance. So if we ever think that somebody's trying to subvert, okay. I mean, if the board's willing to do it, I'm not going to stand in the way. So it sounds like we have a consensus that we're willing to treat the existing driveway as pre-existing condition, and that so the driveway would not nullify the ability to get a conditional use permit. So so we have the application. Do we want to piggyback this onto a public hearing at the next meeting? Okay. So Nicole, we could actually save some money and maybe put one ad in for two subdivisions. Jamie, we're going to have to work with your application a little bit because we have to modify it to have a 4-lot subdivision. Just has to be clear, but I think we can work with what you're doing. You're going to have some restrictions on the ability to do residential use on lot 2. And just because you're planning a commercial use and you're not like fully developing what it looks like to be a residential use. So I don't think you care at this juncture, and you can always come back and modify it. So it's not like this is set in stone forever. But I just wanted to let you know we're going to have to kind of work with your application a little bit. But why don't we set a public hearing the same day? Can you guys remind me, do we do the site walk before traditionally or after the public hearing?
Before, that's what makes
Okay.
sense. So we
Okay.
understand what we're talking about at the public hearing. Surprise, surprise.
Well, I mean, I think it makes sense both ways, you know, like if you know what the plan is, you can go look at what is actually out there.
The previous Saturday is July 4th. Be a good day.
Did we already walk Ted's lot? Was that one of the ones we went to?
No, we
Did do a
didn't.
sidewalk?
No.
So they are both, so, well, Jamie's lot's rather large in the sense of, you know, from Lenny's lot to Deacon Road, that's a bit of a hike. But I don't think any of us want to go onto Jamie's property and look at the division between L3 and L2. That does not have very much interest to me whatsoever, considering they're both commercial lots. So we could do July 4th is the Saturday. We could do July 5th. We could do a weeknight because we have light.
Weeknight would be
we
good.
have light until about 8:30. Yeah, we could hit both lots in about an hour, if not less. So we just need to pick a night.
The previous Monday, July 6th.
So if we put an ad in the shopper's guide today for next Wednesday, I'm just looking at a calendar. Today for next Wednesday, you say July what, Joe?
6.
That would give us enough notice.
At 6
So
o'clock?
Nickel, 6 o'clock, 6 o'clock. So Nickel, we're going to do site walks for both properties July 6th at 6 o'clock. Starting with the Water's Edge property and then doing Jamie's property next. So I got a bug in my then we'll drive down to Jamie's property and Ted's property, I think it's Ted's, right? Water's Edge property should take about 15 minutes. It's all there, very easy to see. And then Jamie's property will probably take another 20, 30 minutes max. So,
Can someone give me a good descriptor of Ted's property other than just the map and lot number to put in the?
It's on Smut Street.
The corner of Freedom Street and 113.
Fremont.
Fremont.
Fremont. Sorry.
Because everybody on Smut Street voted for Fremont for president. Before we had the secret ballot in Maine.
That's funny.
You had to stand up for your candidate.
All right. Lenny, Jamie, anything else from you guys?
No, Mr. Chairman, nothing.
Oh. Okay. Ted, you got anything for us?
Could I just say something to Jamie? Jamie, I don't know if you know that I'm looking at having a solar farm on my property, and if you look on this as me being a competitor, then I would recuse myself from consideration here. But personally, I look on you as an ally, perhaps more than as a competitor.
I wasn't aware of that, but I think the more the better.
Yeah, I just wanted to be open about it so you wouldn't 6 months from now say, what did that guy do? You know.
Right.
Ted, you popped off mute. Anything you got? Okay. Well, we didn't hear anything. If you said anything, we didn't hear it. Anything else from the board or the public that we can deal with in the next 30 seconds?
I move we adjourn.
Seconded. All right. Great job, everybody, on the topics tonight. Well done, and we'll see you July 6th. Meeting adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you, David.
Yeah, pleasure.